Hey there, welcome to SharkCast Pod, a podcast dedicated to the greatest sporting club in the history of the world, the mighty Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. My name is Sam Shinazzi, OG 2015, 12 seasons of podcasting, having a great time doing so. Every year gets better and better. And what a great time to be a Sharks fan. This show is brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the legends of the Royal Mighty Yacht Club in Port Hacking, and Jason Hawes at Cripps and Cripps Real Estate. And this is the first kind of flagship episode for the regular season. We've done a bunch this year, but we're here. We're ready to go. We're days away from Sharks football being played. And who else to talk about that with than my good friend, radio host, Drivetime radio host, guitarist extraordinaire, which we'll talk about a bit later on in the mail section, and just Sharks tragic. He's written a book about us. Not many have done that. I think only one other person's done that technically. Well, I might have to do my math on that, but one other person. Anyway, here is Mr. Clinton Maynard. Yeah. Where is he? Applause. Yeah.
Hey, Sam. What a pump up.
How are you?
Thanks for having me back. It's been a long time since I've been on the show. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited. I'm excited that the weekend Vegas was wonderful. But when your team's not playing, it sort of feels like the season hasn't started yet. So obviously we're recording this on Wednesday night. We're a couple of nights away from game day. I'll be pretty excited by Saturday night.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point you make. And we will talk about a little bit about Las Vegas as well. But I mean, well, our season hasn't started. So I think I'm correct in saying that. So, and everyone's getting pretty pumped around the Shire, and, you know, our fans are worldwide, as we know. So, a lot of expectation. We're going to cover a lot of things in this episode, so please stick with us. Clinton, how is Drive Time going, my friend, on the GB network, Radio 2GB?
Good. Well, there's been plenty of rugby league talk over the past 2 weeks because of Vegas. We had all of our commentators and a lot of our people over in Vegas over the last couple of weeks, and they've just started returning today. Mark Guy presents a daily segment on my show, MG. Mm-hmm. And he's in the air at the moment, so he's actually the last one of our team to return. So I think he's back on my show on Friday, and then we start calling football again on the weekend. So there's actually been a lot of rugby league talk. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about Vegas later, but I think the benefit of the Vegas experiment, and I was, obviously, Sam, I'm a pessimist. I think the benefit of Vegas is not the cracking the American market. I wouldn't be surprised if privately the NRL's basically move that to one side in terms of TV ratings on Fox One, and even entering the betting market, which I think was actually the big play there.
Yeah,
I think the benefit of Vegas is the hype it generates back home, which is we all experienced it last week, and I think it's just huge. And I could imagine that the management of the AFL and Super Rugby, A-League Soccer, they'd be looking at us thinking, we don't exist this week, as in their sports, because all the focus is on us. I was watching an episode of Drive to Survive. I'm a Formula One fan as well. And I was up to the latest series, and I was watching the Vegas episode last night. And the Vegas Formula One event is now one of the biggest Formula One races in the world. It's one of their marquee events. And we're up there now with that, with rugby league. So for all of I think there's a fair bit of criticism about the Vegas experiment when they launched it a couple of years ago. And I was probably a chief cheerleader with that. I didn't want the Sharks to go. But I think it's a stunning success because we're all really excited about the football being back this weekend. And not just us. I think a lot of people who maybe don't follow it as closely as we do. And that's good for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to watch most of the Vegas coverage from home this year, and as in not work on it. And it was cool. It was really good to sit back. Both games were really good. They weren't, masterclasses in rugby league, but they were competitive. We saw the Knights bounce back from their, past few years of being awful. We saw a very close game, obviously, with controversy in the main event. And I thought the coverage was great. I thought the hype was great. The fans were loving it. And as you said, it filters back to Australia. Like it really does, particularly if your teams are involved and you're not there. There's functions, there's events, go watch at your local club, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of pros to it. Like there are arguments about, not everyone can get there, and there are arguments about, is it really necessary? And, you could come back at me and go, no, they're not necessary. And I wouldn't have really an argument on that. But the fact they're doing it, it's really cool. They're not losing money from what we hear. If everything that they're saying is above board, they're not losing money. and he wants to expand it. Volandis wants to expand it to London maybe, and possibly Miami. So I think it's here to stay in some capacity for the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, what both Peter Volandis and Andrew Abdo told 2GB last weekend, they've probably said this on other outlets as well, is that even though they want to go to London, they had mentioned the Middle East. I think that might be off the agenda for a little while, but they've mentioned those other cities. They're actually going to commit themselves to Vegas for another 5 years. So they may well do other cities at the same time, but they believe now Vegas is such a success. And I think that's the right move, because if they do London, it might not attract the same hype back home. I think there's something about Vegas being the party town, being that centre of entertainment, that I think just builds up so much pizzazz about it that if you do it in Miami, for instance, I don't think it'll quite have the same effect. It's a bit like Magic Round being in Brisbane. There was that talk a couple of years ago, maybe they'll play Magic Round in Newcastle. Well, I reckon if they do that, and look, I'm a staunch New South Welshman, but I reckon Magic Round dies. I think it works because it's in Brisbane, because it's close to the city. People like to go on an adventure to Brisbane if you live in New South Wales or Victoria or somewhere else in Queensland.
I mean, the thing with London also is time zones, and back home, it's going to be very early games. Vegas works because I do think, I mean, I mentioned people who can't either afford to go or get the time off work or whatever. There's always going to be a core amount of people, I feel, that will go watch their team every 5 years in Las Vegas, for example, because it's pretty much either a direct flight or, I mean, nowadays, actually, just recently, Qantas have started direct flight, but the NRL do direct flights, or you can get a couple of flights there. It's not the biggest, drama in the world. It's a holiday destination for, more for adults than kids, but you can have a lot of fun there. You don't have to go for very long. So it's always going to kind of work, I think, for that 40,000 people. You probably need the English teams there to bring over their 10,000.
Yeah.
But it's not, I can see why they would extend for another 5 years. I do know that our club would be open to going back for sure. I can't say that officially, but I have spoken to people who are very high up and they're like, yeah, we'd love to go back. So it could be something we're looking at in the next, 2 or 3 years. It might start affecting us again. So stay tuned on that. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with it all, Clinton. I really was. And someone tagged me in something and they said, unless you were there, you can't really know how great it was. And I hate to get on that side of the argument, but that's actually true. Like, if you've been there and done it in this experience, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just a takeover.
I don't want to sound like I've been drinking the Kool-Aid too much, Sam. But ever since the deal, and we can probably talk about this later in the year on a different podcast, but ever since the deal was announced to create a site in PNG, I've been pretty negative about that. I find it really hard to see how that's going to be successful, just attracting, even with tax-free dollars, attracting the right players to live in Port Moresby, the most dangerous city in the world. Yeah, sure, there's going to be a compound. So I've always been very pessimistic about that thought. But Peter Volandis seems to make stuff work. He doesn't usually fail at things. And that makes me start to think, you know what, maybe PNG will work because of the Volandis touch. Well, you can talk about all that later in the year, but I think overall, rugby league is in such a healthy state at the moment, and a lot of that's got to do with the way Peter Volandis runs it and comes up with these big, bold initiatives.
Now, we are on a Sharks podcast. There are lots of Sharks news coming, so don't go anywhere. But I can tell you that and you know this, Clinton, the TV rights deal is going to be through the roof. It's going to be, I mean, the negotiations have already started, but you're going to see so many different companies come in who weren't here 3 or 4 or 5 years ago coming in. Like, there's a lot of people competing for those rights.
Yeah, I think, and I don't have any inside knowledge about this, but I think the nature of how they do the deal will change to maximise the revenue. So don't be surprised if it's more than just Fox Sports and Nine that has the rights. I think you'll find Seven's already made it pretty clear they're going to bid. So they, for instance, may just bid for Monday Night Football. The word is Monday Night Football return as the new teams come in. They might get that, but I doubt Seven will get the whole lot because they've got to balance that with AFL. Nine, which I work for Nine, at least for the next few months before our station sold to another company, they'll be desperate to keep it because live sport is critical to free-to-air TV. We all know audiences have gone to other formats. like this, like YouTube, etc. But what keeps a level of audience engagement with free-to-air TV as live sport? AFL and cricket for 7. For 9, it's rugby league. They lose rugby league, they've got married at first sight in the tennis. So it's really critical to 9. Critical for your company as well, Fox Sports or DAZN. So it'll be a lot of competition. Then you'll have the players, whether you're Amazons or your Netflix, whether they want to get involved. I'm a bit dubious whether the overseas players will be involved. But Peter V'landers will be working as hard to maximise the dollar. So he'll certainly negotiate with them.
Well, they're definitely having meetings. I don't know how serious they are about them, but they're definitely having meetings. And it's going to be interesting with the splitting up of things, because I think free-to-air you can split up pretty easily, and obviously it doesn't affect the viewer. When it comes to streaming and paying for subscription TV, and you want to split that up, which happens in the NFL and a lot of other sports, but I'm using NFL as an example, you might have 3 or 4 different packages with different companies to watch all of the NFL. Now, you can get one overall Game Pass, I'm pretty sure, in America, definitely in Australia, for that. But I wonder if, for example, maybe Fox get offered, I don't know, 5 games, and then Amazon get 3. I think Fox are going to all of them, to be honest. And I think that for the NRL, and I'm just saying this as a fan, not as an employee of Fox, but you probably don't want to be splitting up the subscription stuff. I think you can split up the free-to-air as much as you want. Like, go nuts. But I think with subscription in Australia at the moment, I don't think everyone's going to buy into the 3 different packages to watch a whole round of footy.
They've got to be so careful with this, because I think maybe soccer football is the best example of a game that's probably gone down the wrong path there. That their A-League's in terrible trouble at the moment with fans. It's on Paramount Plus, and maybe a free-to-air game once a week on 10. Paramount Plus is 10.
Yeah.
But I used to watch I'm not a massive soccer fan, but I'd watch the odd A-League game because it was on Fox, because I had Foxtel. I'd watch the odd Premier League game, because now you've got to have it's Optus or Stanford Premier League. A-League's on Paramount Plus. Motorsport's a little the same with things like IndyCar now. It's really hard. You know, plenty of us have got a few of these outlets, but no one can afford them all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's get to our beloved Sharks. That's what we're here to talk about. Now, Clinton, what did you make of the preseason? How do you think that the team went, the club went? And tell me about the preseason games that you got to watch.
Oh, I think it's pretty difficult to judge, as it is with any trial. I was pretty impressed with the standard they played with in the second trial. But in saying that, we were playing a reserve grade team. And yes, the worry for me was the first game. And I know plenty of people will say, and I have heard this, oh, look, we wheeled out a reserve grade team. We had our starting pack there virtually. I mean, most of our veteran forwards were all there.
No, what I would say is you had some first graders. It wasn't the starting pack.
But there was a lot there. Fanua Blake wasn't there. Brayley wasn't there. But I think I read this from, I can't remember who it was saying. They said what's important in trials is not the result. It's the attitude of players and how they aim up, and then their physicality. And we did have some starters in that side, or maybe they were some of the 17.
Yeah, for sure.
And we then had so many hyped youngsters, like your Stone Streets, Gabriels. It was a shame Ison was out, but there was plenty there. Let's be honest, they didn't aim up. But I'm not talking scoreboard. I'm just talking basic attitude. They looked what they were never competing. That was a real worry. Now, on the flip side, I think it was completely different the week later. But where it's hard to judge is we were playing a genuine reserve grade team in Canberra. So, I find it really hard to make an assessment yet. But
yeah,
maybe the strength is, I think our halves played pretty well in the second trial, and I think those halves played pretty well in the Indigenous All-Stars game. I think that's a real positive for us.
Absolutely. We can talk about that. I will say that the young fellas who didn't aim up in the first trial, when they were in the NRL squad and then playing with some of those guys in the second half of the second game, I thought they looked a lot better. So,
true.
You know, and the guys who weren't first graders in the first trial, they were pretty much, kids.
But I think we learned a lot. I think we've learned that there was legitimate talk in the off season about Ramian maybe leaving.
Yeah.
And that was thrown up only 2 weeks ago because of the Zach Lomax thing in Melbourne. Now, the idea for Ramian to go to Melbourne wasn't for next year, it'd be for this year. Now, no, that's not to say the club would be letting him go, but that's why the manager would have been reaching out to Melbourne. Hey, I might be able to get a 3-year deal with Melbourne starting this year because they've got a hole because they're not getting Lomax.
Yeah.
I think we found out pretty quickly Gabriel's going to have hopefully a great future with us, but he's not ready to replace Ramian. And I've been one of Ramian's biggest critics, I guess, in the last couple of years, but he's not ready. And if we've got a premiership window open, which I think, well documented, this is the last year of the current squad, we can't be taking any risks yet.
Yeah, I think that first trial showed that for sure. But I think that we need to be a bit realistic about the Ramian talk as well. A lot of it is from the manager, and then I know it leaks out to all of the, media and everything. But I can tell you, our coach, who gets paid the big bucks, the coach is big on Ramian. Like, he might let him go at the end of the year, but he's a big fan. Like, that stuff's, there's so much that's not true about all that stuff.
Oh yeah,
and I think Ramian looked really good in the All-Stars game, and in the second trial he looked great. So I think there's not going to be an issue there.
I thought he looked fantastic in the second trial. I didn't watch a lot of the All-Stars games, except probably the highlights. So I guess was where I saw Trindle and Nico play pretty well. But I thought he physically looked good in the trial. Maybe he's trimmed down a bit. Maybe I know he'd been through with some issues with his child last year, and perhaps the problem in Bali, and maybe he just wasn't in the right headspace last year. But I thought he looked real good in the trial. So I think he was actually one of the highlights of the trial.
Yeah. Every one of our reps in both the men's and women's All-Stars game were really good. And probably from memory, Trindle was the best. Like, Trindle has had 2 good preseason games now, and there's a lot of pressure on him. I know obviously Nico carries all the weight, and, we can't change that really, but Trindle's looking good. Like, I think for both of them to fire, it's going to take us a long way this year. Let me ask you this. Now, you have said trials hard to read. Has anything changed?
Well, particularly let's be honest. Well, I think we're going to need to be honest about the Canberra team. The Canberra team they had nothing. Like, the Parramatta team at least had more than the Canberra team. But the
Parramatta team was near first grade without Moses. The Canberra team.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. Moses is the Parramatta team. You look at Parramatta's form without Moses over recent years; it's deplorable.
Sure, but my point is, like,
they put 44 points on us without Moses.
Yeah, that's fair. My point is, though, 13 of the 14 guys are going to be there, so it was their team, and the Canberra team was first grade-ish without the spine, especially. Like, the spine was non-existent. So I absolutely take your point there. Absolutely, but it is hard to read. I was going to ask you, did your expectations change at all, or is there a bit more hope because you thought, Ramian looked good, or is there a bit more, or is it just about where you thought we'd be? No,
I think it's about where we are.
Okay.
I think that we're a team that'll challenge for the top 4. Probably just miss. I think there's a lot of good teams this year. It's going to be really hard to get top 4. I think we're a top 8 side based on what we did last year, and I don't think the trials changed my mind at all. Even if we had performed poorly in the second trial, it wouldn't have changed my mind. And
you're saying you're not confident of top 4?
Oh, God, no. I think if I was to... no, but, okay, I'm the pessimist, but if I was to put money on it, okay, let's legitimately look at it. Yeah. The Roosters have had the sombrero out, and it's got bigger over this off-season, right?
They look good,
They were good at the back end of the year. We beat them, but if they don't make the top 4, there's going to be... Nick Politis is going to be writing himself. Okay, so there's the Roosters. Melbourne will be in the top 4. Now, I know they've suffered massive losses, but let's just look at history. It doesn't matter. They just reinvent themselves. There's 2 positions gone already. I think the Broncos might be in for a bit of a poor year. Not that they won't make the 8, but I think the Broncos will struggle. The Bulldogs didn't impress me on the weekend, but they now have that consistency to just do what it takes to win. So Bulldogs, there's 3 positions gone already, which leaves 1. Penrith, I would favour to win the competition this year. There's 4. Which one of those teams are we going to knock out?
So you don't think we're as good as Canterbury?
No.
Really?
Based on how they played the other night, that Canterbury will be a more consistent side than us. They won't have razzle dazzle. I think they're going to have some issues in the halves because I'm not convinced about Galvin, but they defend. Now, if we play the way we played at the end of last season, absolutely. But I think I made a comment, wasn't on a podcast, maybe I'd send it to our group chat, about we need to be able to play like that every week. And the boys on the chat rightly pointed out, you can't. You can't have that intensity every week over the course. The Bulldogs seem to be able to maintain high intensity. But in saying that, okay, I'm not convinced about the Bulldogs, but already the Raiders won them on a premiership last year. I don't have them in my 4. The team that I think is going to shock a lot of people this year, South Sydney. Have a look at the South Sydney roster. Okay, I think there's still an issue at halfback, but watch David Fafita tear sides apart this year playing under Wayne Bennett. Watch Latrell Mitchell now he's the centres, then allowing Jai Gray to play fullback. They are going to be a top 8 side this year. They weren't even contenders for the top 8 last year. So I think we've got a chance of making the top 4. But if I was to put money, we didn't make the top 4 last year. We were prelim finalists, but we didn't make the top 4. Now, in my top 4, we finished 5th, equal points of Broncos on for and against. So I don't even have the Broncos in my top 4. I don't have the Raiders in my top 4. I don't have the Warriors in my top 4. How am I going to fit the Sharks in my top 4? It is almost impossible.
No, I respect that. The only reason I scoffed at the start of the conversation about that was because you were so adamant that they weren't going to be a top 4 team. I was like, what? That's very strong feelings.
I pretty much can't see how it's going to happen. Pretty much can't see how it's going to happen. Because
can I tell you how it's going to happen?
I think we can slightly improve, but we've got the same squad as last year as well. There's other teams around us that are going to improve. The Roosters are the best example. South's another example, teams that will improve. I think the Warriors might struggle a bit without Metcalf at the start of the season. I think the Raiders might struggle a bit because Fogarty's not there anymore. And I think the Broncos just might have a bit of a premiership hangover with a lot of superstar Larry sort of players. But there's only so many teams. A lot of, and I don't necessarily pay attention to these, but a lot of people have us outside of the 8. Now, I think that's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, because we were a top 4 quality side last year. But reasons some critics have us outside the 8 is because there are so many pretty decent teams this year.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I like the fact that the positive thing about not changing your team every year is that it's such a stable lineup. They know what they did wrong last year. Last year, it's clear what they did wrong during the middle of the season, mainly. If they fix that up, they finish higher than where they were. I mean, I don't think you're going to see us play too differently this year. I think there might be a bit more grit. I think you might get the last half of the season most weeks. It won't be every week, as you said, but I think there's going to be a bit more grit in what we do. But I just look at our team and I look at a team like the Bulldogs. I'm not disrespecting them at all. They're a very consistent team. But based on what I saw in Las Vegas, they didn't look like a top 4 team to beat. Now, I know you're saying they can just win no matter what. But, I mean, they were pretty much handed – I don't want to get into that whole thing, but they were pretty much handed the game, to be fair.
Yeah. I thought
that's not going to happen every week.
I thought the Bulldogs were bog stand average in Vegas. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And if there's one team in my 4, so Penrith, Melbourne, and the Roosters locked, the one team that's not a lock is the Bulldogs. So maybe we're competing with the Bulldogs, South Sydney, the Broncos, Canberra. But that's a lot of teams.
Look, it's going to be tough.
It's all well and good for us to say, if only we'd beaten Canberra in the last minute. If only we didn't. If we beat the Warriors. If we did. But we say that every year because that's sport. There's always those only ifs. There's also games you end up winning that you probably shouldn't win.
That's fair. That is fair.
I think the consistency of our side is good for us because it's been proven year after year. Teams that have the fewer players used over the course of a season, that benefits them because they're all playing together regularly. And now we're coming into sort of the 4th year, basically, of almost the same side. So I think that's a really good thing. But I think we're kidding ourselves if we don't think other teams around us aren't going to improve. Yeah. I think there's some clear examples of that.
So when I look at, I don't want to go through a whole NRL thing with you right now, but when I look at South Sydney, absolutely they've improved in player recruitment. Their left edge is going to be lethal. But they're a team that is a lot older. Same with the Broncos. Like they got older halves. Like if one of them steps a foot wrong, and I know we could say the same thing about Nico Hines, Braden Trindle, I get all that. But when I look at some of those squads, the depth isn't there to really, like, you can't cover a David Fafita. You can't cover a Latrell Mitchell. Like,
yeah, but we can't cover a Nico Hines or a Braden Trindle.
I respect that. I'm just saying
we can't cover a fullback. Ison has not played in a year. We can't cover a hooker. Proof of that was Beryl's performance in the trials. We've got great forward depth, no question, and we've got some good upcoming centres. But we have zero spine depth.
Like, no one knows who's going to put a foot wrong, right? But I guess I'm just saying, based on the last few years, South Sydney, the most injury-prone team in the comp. Like, they can't stay on the field. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen.
They've changed their training staff.
Yeah.
And I would have thought, and I don't know enough about that side of the game to know, but eventually your luck's going to turn.
Absolutely.
But eventually our luck might turn as well the other way. We've had a consistent couple of years.
I'm not basing us making the top 4 based on someone else's injuries. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I think we're going to have a really good year. I think that we're going to be consistent. I think we're going to right some wrongs from last year. But as you said, there's probably some games we won that we shouldn't have. So it'll even itself out. But I really like the fact, Clinton, more than anything, that it's the coach going into year 5. It's pretty much the same team. We've added Fanua Blake. He was fantastic last year. There's no reason to think he won't be even better this year. He looks amazing. And I just think if they can just correct it a little bit along the way, I think it's going to be a good year. Now, I don't know where we're going to finish. I'm assuming that for me, it's going to be a top 4, but when you paint it like that, it's going to be real difficult. I get it. Yeah. I do get it. You might even see, and laugh me out of the room, but you might even see a West Tigers pushing for the 8. So obviously,
absolutely,
a lot of teams are improving. So, but yeah, I'm one of the, I'm not going to say few, but I'm one of the people that actually stands on the side of, I like this squad and I want to see what they can do for one more year. Now, I'm not saying you keep going year after year after year if they don't, have some real great success, but yeah, I'm one of those people that really likes what they're doing, and they just need to sort of do it for a bit longer,
I like the squad as well, and what gives me good hope. And when I say if I was putting money down on the top 4, I would not be putting money on the Sharks to make the top 4. That doesn't mean I don't think it can happen, because I think there is a pathway there. I think we have a better draw than we did last year. Now, when I say we have a better draw, that's not based on who we're playing. It's based on our travel. We have a more consistent travel regime than we did. Like, how I felt about last year with Vegas and then all the time on the road. I know no one at the club was using that as an excuse, but you still can't tell me that didn't have an effect at some point in the season.
Yeah.
I think it's better for us the way the draw. When I hear the consistency of the side is a very strong positive for us. The fact that, I can't believe when we do get criticised for not bringing any players in, well, who are we going to bring? Who do we need to bring in? Superstar fullback. Okay, bring in Ryan Pappenhausen, which was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Which member of our spine do we lose? We already have a rep quality hooker. We have 2 halves that I think we're all pretty happy with now. You've got to pay, one of your spine's got to be on a smaller deal. So we were never going to get a superstar fullback. So I'm happy with the squad, and probably the biggest thing I'm happy with is Fitz himself. The podcast interview you did a few weeks back was brilliant because he fills you with confidence when you listen to him.
Yeah, for sure.
But I genuinely think other teams are going to lift around us. I find it hard to see how the Raiders could maintain where they were. I find it hard to see how the Warriors could keep those positions.
Yeah.
There's so much unknown, but I think that to say, we're a lock for the top 4, I can't say it. And I don't put my money down unless I'm a lock.
That's fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. It's realistic. I get it. It is. It's going to be interesting. But on the fullback situation or bringing in someone, I tend to read a lot of social media and everything else. And people's sort of answer is, and I know he's in trouble for something else, but bring in Dane Laurie to replace Will Kennedy. It's like, no, we've got a guy who's pretty good most of the time. We concede he's not Ryan Pappenhausen, but he's also better than the guy you're talking about, and add all the other fullbacks in that list. So that's something that kind of always astounds me. It's like they think there's a theory with someone. Okay, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. And their answer is that guy's on the market, bring him in no matter what. And it's like, well, why don't you look at him, how he plays closely and off-field stuff and everything else? It's like, that's not the answer. That's not going to get you to the grand final and win a comp. So, yeah, it always comes back to Paul Will. Out of all the people, Paul Will's always the target.
And yeah, don't forget that he was leading the Dally M's the first chunk of the year as well. I think he cops it badly. I think that they're clearly not convinced about him long term because they've signed him to a 1-year contract and they haven't done another one yet. So his future's well up in the air. But I think that I think with fullback, the issue is going to be how Ison comes back from the knee injury. If he's performing really, really well mid-season with Newtown, they probably do move on just to freshen things up a bit. I think the only reason you consider moving Will on is if Ison comes good or there's another option that's we know is a lot better and affordable. That's not Dane Laurie. Dane Laurie might be okay. The only reason you'd bring him in and get rid of Will is because you feel the squad is stale. But the squad, we've seen other players have now signed with other clubs, it's going to go through a regeneration next year anyway. So if there's any staleness in it, that's going to naturally be remedied by a few players leaving that we know are going already. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Will sign another 1-year contract because he's not going to Perth, where I know people thought he'd go to Perth. Perth's now signed a couple of fullbacks. So he's not there. So maybe he signs a 1-year deal with Toby and they go to PNG together year after next.
I also wouldn't be surprised if he hangs around. I think the only thing going against him with that is that maybe there will be some bigger name fullbacks on the market for the year after next, and they'll be a bit more something to strive for the club. Maybe they'll be like, well, that's the X factor we need. But I also, wouldn't be surprised if he stays year on year because as long as he keeps winning those Dally M points, I mean, there's not a great problem there. He's got a howler in him. We know that, every now and then he'll have a howler, but boy, he's one of the more consistent players. I could tell you the other thing I like Clinton, and it's a bit more, I don't know if people look into this stuff or not, but living in the community I live in, I see these guys around a lot and on a daily basis. And they are very much in tune with each other. Like they hang out when they're not training, when they're not on their days off, when they can, or the guys without the families, etc. They're a very close-knit unit. And I'm not saying necessarily it's every single member, but then sometimes you'll see them out and it is every single member on a day off, just sort of hanging out, having coffees or whatever. So it's...
Are you telling me they're connected?
It's a big word this year, connected.
Yeah, if I was Fitz, I'd come out and say, right, what I want you to do is I want you to spend a lot of time with each other on the field. I want you to do everything you can to be in each other's pockets, to know each other's going backwards. But we're banning the word connected. From now on, we are never using that word again in this club because it is the most overrated load of garbage as I hear as a word. There was I can't remember who it was, but
it was Lockie
Fox coverage. He said it 5 times in one sentence. I mean, I know the kid's 20, but come on. If you keep using a word like that, you don't know what it means because you're just sprouting what a coach is telling you.
I know that we did use it a lot last year as a group. The word is out there a lot.
This year, move on, get rid of it. But I'm not saying the philosophy shouldn't stay. And you know what? This is the journalist in me now because we sort of care about the English language sometimes. The more you use a word, the more meaningless it becomes. The philosophy behind it, and I know I'm getting worked up, Sam, and sorry, everyone. The philosophy behind it is good. But come up with a different phrase just to differentiate yourself from the 16 other bloody NRL clubs, including Lockie Damn Galvin.
You think you're revved up now? Wait till we get to Talakai. Ooh. Now, get your thesaurus out. What word do you want to use?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a football coach.
Maybe our listeners can help us out with a word to use instead of connection. I got a feeling it's going to be hard to get that out of their vocab just quietly, Clinton, so you better buckle yourself in. Let's talk a bit of lower grades before we move into some heavy stuff. I can tell you that 3 of our 4 teams won, which is fantastic. The SG Ball team had their first win of the year, and the only team to lose in the weekend was the Harold Mats. They lost 24-18. It was a derby day against the Dragons. All 4 teams played the Dragons. Harold's Mat lost by 6. They were down by quite a bit. They came back, but it wasn't enough. Chad's SG Ball team had their first win of the year, 20-0. Our mate Oliver Lester scoring a try.
So that
And
they had a win there when Chad was out of the country.
They did. He's aware of that. He's aware of that. The SG Ball, yes, they won. Lisa Fiala had a massive win, 62-0, and Tasha Gale won 24-0. So in all three wins, they kept the Dragons to nil, which is fantastic.
Good.
Chad can find a headline from the fainting through to the other stuff. Boy, oh boy.
He's a good fella, Chad. He cops
He's a great
it from
fella.
our fan base, but he's a good fella.
Great fella. He knows his stuff, and I actually, unlike others, I actually respect the path that he's on. It's a very well thought out, busy schedule that he's doing. And I know that the coaching stuff is, in other people's eyes, more serious than his media thing. I get that, but he's got to look after himself.
Would have been about 6 or 7 years ago. So when Chad was still with us, Rob Willis gave me a call, the PR manager for the Sharks, media manager, and he said, "Oh mate, would you mind if we hooked you up with Chad just over the phone, just to seek a bit of advice about how he can start developing a career post football in the media?" That was 6, 7, 8 years ago. So he obviously had a plan a long time ago to start developing something, and good on him. He's at an opposition radio network, but good on him. He's doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to break the wall down too much, but he messaged me a few times because I knew him through the podcast, and he was asking me stuff about his podcast before it started, and that was a long time ago. Like he out of all the players, he was sort of one of the more innovative guys to get in on it. So he's reaping the rewards now. So good luck to him. Will be at Ocean Protect Stadium, be a triple header. So it's 1:45, 3:15, NRL 5:30. And the Lisa Fiala Tasha Gale is down the road at Cronulla High at 11 and 12:30. So you can kind of do 5 grades if you're keen. So I challenge people to go do that. I won't be doing that, but I challenge people 5 grades. That'd be amazing, of Sharks footy. And for whatever reason, we're not sure, both Jersey Flegg and the Newtown Jets have the round 1 bye. And someone pointed out to me that in the New South Wales Cup, is there only one team that requires the bye, but 2 people have it? I don't know what's going on there. So that's a bit above my pay grade. Now, Clinton, before we get you off the back fence for the Teague stuff, for the SIFA stuff, let me tell you about our friends at the Royal Motor Yacht Club Port Hacking. Your old housemate, Liam Rogers, you must have some stories there. He is the manager of the RMYC, and they've got a great restaurant there, the Galley. It's a great place to eat food, great place to watch the footy, have a drink, whether it's alcoholic or not. The most picturesque views you've ever seen on the water. They make you feel welcome. You don't need to be a member. We encourage you to be a member. You don't need to be one. Hit them up, rmycph.com.au or 9523-9300. What can you tell us about Liam that won't get us banned from all our platforms?
We lived together for, I don't know, it was about 2 years or so in Caringbah. And it was in the days when Coyotes was still a big deal.
Ooh, yeah.
The Caringbah Inn. When Hunters was a big deal in Sutherland.
Yeah.
So I think Hunters doesn't exist anymore. It went through about 5 name changes due to some licensing issues, but I think they closed it all together these days. So I lived with Liam and my brother. My brother went to school with Liam. And so there was many a night had at those venues and then returning back to our house 4 a.m. in the morning.
So Thursday
didn't
night.
Like doing a lot of housework. Didn't do a lot of housework, Liam.
I don't think he does anymore either, is what I hear. Thursday night, we're talking $2 drink nights at Cody's. Was it that era?
Yeah, it would have been after. It would have probably been even after the $2 drink night. I think $2 drink was probably around the mid-90s.
Okay.
So I'm thinking around 2000, 2001, sort of around that.
All right.
That era. So it would have been a bit more expensive, but you'd still get some decent bands. Like, I know they still have bands at Caringbah Inn, but you get some still international and big Australian bands playing there. So
absolutely, I saw many a good band there, and that leads us into a bit of a plug for our mate Donnie Rogers. He's playing a show after the Titans game at the Caringbah. It's just called the Caringbah, but the Caringbah Hotel, Caringbah Inn. Donnie Rogers on Survivor currently. Not sure of the status of that because I don't watch it. On Survivor, He was on The Voice. He played lower grades for the Sharks. His dad and brother are Sharks royalty, as we know. Donnie Rogers, country music star. Free show, Clinton. So go from the Titans game. Watch us after the show, after the game. Watch our after show, then head up there. Free show, 3 sets. It'll be like, 9 to 12 or whatever. Donnie Rogers. Don Rogers. I think it's just Don Rogers, not Donnie. Don Rogers. There you go.
What a legend. What a legendary family.
Yeah, he's keeping that legend going, that's for sure. Now, Teague Wilton on the comeback trail, Clinton. Stop sweating so much. He's on the comeback trail. I don't have weeks for you, but I would think it would be 2 to 3, maybe 1 to 3, I'll say even. He's out there training. He's taking some hits. So had a shoulder, I don't know what it was, but surgery of some sort in the off season and just making his way back. So nothing too much to worry there. And thankfully we do have a great replacement there, which we'll talk about later on. I don't have too much on Liam Eisen. I think that they're just taking it carefully with him because he is the next big hope. And he needs to obviously have a drama-free season. So the longer they can keep him in cotton wool, when he's completely ready, he'll be out there. I would imagine he might even be out there for the Jets when they play in week 2, but we'll see. We'll see on that one. Now, I know you're going to get revved up here, Clinton, so feel free to get revved up as you want. Just watch your blood pressure. You think that, World War III's got you. There they are. You think they look familiar. You think World War III is going to get you revved up about things and all, I heard a piece about Clover Moore the other day. But this is it. This is it. Sifa Talakai. What are your thoughts?
She is going to knock down the Woolworths building to create a spot for protests. Come on. Okay, listen to that on 2GB. Sydney now, till 6. Okay, I've calmed down a little bit since the announcement was made last Friday night. And our group texts with the SharkCast hosts, yes, I was quite vocal on that. I'm not happy.
No.
Sorry, folks. I'm not happy. Of all the players off contract, the one I would have been busting a gut to sign was Sifa. I think he's got a unique ability, not in the game, but in our club, to turn a game with his sheer power. He's a different style of player to AFB, but he also, in some respects, is sort of the closest of that power player that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not aware of what the salary cap issues were. I don't know how much he's being paid by the Perth Bears. What I don't understand is why we couldn't have let several other players. It's not even a matter of letting players go. We have a stack off contract. I don't understand how we couldn't let several of those middle players go and keep Talakai. Now, I would be stunned if he's being paid $800 a year by Perth for 3 years. Maybe that's what he's being paid, but Perth has a salary cap as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're starting from scratch, so it's a completely different scenario. Would I be paying $800 for Sifa Talakai? No. But I'm still finding it hard to believe that we couldn't come near to matching the offer. And I think, given he's got to now travel across the other side of the country, I find it hard to believe that if we didn't have an offer that was competitive, that we couldn't have kept him. And I don't understand when you've got so many players off contract and we apparently have so much depth and so many wonderful juniors coming through, why it wasn't possible. In saying that, and this is where I have calmed down, I have enormous faith in Darren Mooney, who obviously runs player management and salary cap, and fits to get these things right, because they do get these things right. So I've calmed down since last week. But I can genuinely say in the 17, Sifa is within my top 3 favourite players, no doubt. I know he's getting a little bit older. I don't think he's 30 quite yet. But decent forwards can keep going to their mid-30s, and he sort of came to top grade late in his career as well. So I'm not happy. I don't reckon most Sharks fans are happy about it. I'd say the Fitzes and the Moonies aren't happy about it either. However, if they've made the decision that they don't want to go anywhere near matching Perth, maybe they've made that for a good reason. Now, maybe they have, given they work so closely with all the players, but Siffer, they might have a good feeling that Siffer's peaked, and he might only have another. It sounds awful to say about a bloke, but maybe they feel he's only got another good 12 months in him, that he doesn't have a good. And when we say sign a 4-year deal, he's then got to have 4 good more years in it, because he's still got a 12 months deal, a full season deal with us. So maybe they think he's not up to another good 4 years at the top level. That might be the case. So they know more than us. So I've got a bit more faith than I did last Friday, but I still don't like the decision.
Are you, in all seriousness, when you think about it, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, there's guys off contract, sell 2 or 3 off to keep him.
Well, it's not selling. They're not on contract. It's not a matter of trying to ship them off. Just don't re-sign them.
Do you stand by that, even though the Sharks look at him as a bench player?
Why do they look at him as a bench player?
I don't know.
But even as a bench player, yes. I would start him as a middle before Toby and Hamunueli if it meant keeping him.
I appreciate that. I don't disagree.
I think he does have more impact off the bench because he can change a game.
Oh.
But I think he's... And like Toby was great at the back end of last year. And again, we don't understand the implications, but based on what Toby Rudolph has said publicly, there's probably a fair chance we can sign Toby for 1 year and hopefully at a reasonably decent salary, because he can then go and get his big payday in PNG, which he's made as clear as what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So you might be able to get Toby at a good rate. But again, they know this stuff better than we do, in the figures. There is no other player off contract of that big group of players that were off contract. Once I think Calhoun was signed. Now, your interview with him this week was great. He's got future probably him and Wilton have future captaincy written all over them, even though Blake's pretty young. Just the way he conducts himself and speaks, let alone the way I think the side improved when he came into the starting lock position at the end of last year. So I would still have preferred Calhoun because he has youth on his side. But other than Calhoun, every other player off contract, I would opt for Talakai beforehand.
Yeah, so I agree with you with pretty much everything you've said. Like, he's one of my favorite guys. I want to keep him. I agree that there's no one else really like him. I agree he could be a middle. I don't know why I don't know why he's just a benchy. And as a benchy, I don't know why he plays the small amount of minutes he does.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. I would try and make it work in different ways. I probably just can't extend it to let 2 or 3 guys go and give him the money. I know that's not as simple as what you're saying, but I think when we start doing that, it gets a little bit, I'm not sure about this, but there's not too many in the game like him. You sort of stalled over that. You said the club, but there's not many in the game like him. Like, he's legitimately a bad man on the field. Now, on the Fitzy and Mooney and Sharks thing, I think they're big fans. I don't think they necessarily think he's peaked. And I think if you look at the minimal amount of footy he's played over the past 3 or 4 years, there's plenty of juice in there.
Well, if that's the case, that's a shame, because then he's pretty much one of the first players they've lost who they wanted to keep.
Yes,
I'm actually hoping they were happy to lose him.
I don't know if they were. I don't know if they'd even admitted if they were, but I get the feeling they're not overly happy. I just think that it comes back, unfortunately, to the Perth money situation, because Perth can offer extended contracts. So when I say that, I just mean an extra year or 2, because what have they got to lose? They've got to, it's not a blank check, but they've signed so many kids and young guys on $200,000 a year. Then if someone goes, I'm a family man, I've got 3 or 4 kids. Oh yeah, well, we can give you security. So they'll give him 1 to 2 more years, and they can raise whatever the Sharks are offering. So if I don't know what he's on at Perth or what he's going to be on at Perth, it's not going to be 800,000. I wouldn't have thought, but I don't know what the Sharks could have offered him that Perth couldn't have matched. I've got the feeling Perth could kind of match. Well, obviously they could, because they've got him, right? So I genuinely think it came down to money and security. Now, why the Sharks couldn't offer that? There's a bunch of stuff you said. There's guys coming through. He plays limited minutes. I get that you and I would play him for longer, but they're not. There's a bunch of that going on. So it does get quite complicated as to how much you can offer him. I'm sure they offered him a deal because he didn't actually accept Perth straight away. And my mail was that he wasn't completely comfortable making the trip over there in the long run. So it obviously was a very difficult decision. But it had to have come down to money only. He's obviously not going to be in a competitive team really for 4 or 5 years, you would think. So he throws away that opportunity. So I just think Perth had more money, and then they got their guy, and they might get another one, but they didn't get Jesse Colquhoun, so they got this guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen with these new teams.
Yeah. No, look, we've got no other choice but to accept it. But if we'd heard that Perth was signing Toby, Braden Ueli, Jesse Ramian, but we were keeping Talakai, I'd be like, okay, no drama.
I got you. Yeah, I understand.
Because I think we do have. There's other players in the squad who are going to be. We've got too many middle. Not too many. It's great to have the depth, but we probably don't need as many of those top level middles that we have at the moment. Now, while I was defending Ramian there, if by next year Gabriel's not up to it, well, he's probably not going to be up to it. So we've got to put faith in these kids at some point. So if we lost a couple of the middles and Ramian, who are all on good coin and would want to be re-signed on good coin, but we kept Talakai, I would have preferred that. It's 3 players against 1, but I'd prefer that personally.
I guess we don't know that the Sharks didn't say that to them. Maybe they went, hey, well, we want to keep him, but how about you take this package? And they would have gone, no, we want that guy. So,
and it's also not up to us because all these players are off contract. So it's actually not our role to say, hey, we'll give you Jesse, BHU, and Toby Rudolph because they're not our players.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting they did, but we just don't know that it was a straight deal. They went, just take him. Like, I don't think it was that easy.
Oh, and the thing is, in the end, Sam, we're not losing the key players like the Brayleys, Nicos, maybe a long-term captain like Colquhoun. It's not those style of players. While I say he's a game-changing player, we will get by without him. There'll be other players who come through the system that can start to fill that role in the future. Or let's remember, we got him on a train and trial. So there'll be someone else who we haven't even thought of yet who will come good.
Oh, look, I mean, he's more in the vein of a Tom Hazelton, but big Felix Fatili. I mean, he's still a little while away. Don't get too excited, but he's a guy that could change the game. Like, he's a huge body. The thing with Siffer is he just has that ability in the sort of Taumalolo mold. Like, he just legitimately hard to stop. And we don't have a lot of those guys. So thankfully his cousin is here for another, 2 or 3 years, but we do say goodbye to Siffer. Now there is more talk of other guys going. We know this. Cam McInnes has been spoken about for PNG in particular. Toby, you mentioned. Is there anyone else out off the top of your head crying out to be signed by you if you were the CEO? Or are you happy just to sort of wait and see how the form is?
I'd be probably waiting and seeing on Jesse. And I know, even though I feel that it might be time to move on, I think we've got to have some confidence that Gabriel's ready to step up. I think it would also depend on what Jesse's price tag is. Broadly, I would have said for most of last year that I'm ready for Jesse to move on. But maybe there were some extenuating circumstances to his form last year. So if it was a good price for us, I'm not opposed to him staying, depending on how he goes in the first half of this year. Regarding the others off contract, I think we're in a good position with the likes of Toby Rudolph and Cam because we might be able to sign them on pretty reasonable deals for a year if they have eyes for PNG. As amazing as Cam has been for years, to be fair, I probably would be ready to move on after one more season after this year from Cam. I probably wouldn't go more than 1 year. Same with now, Toby's been great for us as well, but I think it hit us midway through last year that the squad did need a bit of freshening up, and that's going to happen. So that might be time that your Tobies go. BHU or BU is now known. I think he looked pretty good in the second trial. I think we need him at his peak. I think we all really like to see him succeed. So I'm not giving up on him yet. Or is Oregon Kafusi off contract yet, or they?
I think
He's under
he
maybe
might
another
be end
year.
of. I can't remember.
Yeah,
He
the
might be
following
end of
year, I think.
year. Yeah, yeah, and don't forget he's pretty young compared to the other guys.
Yeah,
Oregon.
and he, I seem to swing both ways on him. Like I think he came good in some of those games, like at the end of last year. I think he actually played really well. Maybe
Yeah,
I think he came back from an injury and perhaps had a couple of games off the bench and actually
yeah,
played pretty well off the bench.
yeah.
Billy Burns seems to be a year-by-year proposition. So he might be that sort of player that gets a really good deal from a PNG or even
I,
a Perth
I
Bears.
can't believe a Perth Bears wouldn't be knocking
Yeah.
down Billy Burns' door.
I mean, he
Like,
was great. It
seriously.
was just great at the end of last year.
On Michael Gabriel, I will just say this. He's a lot better than what he showed in the first trial, and I already said that with the second trial. I can't explain why pretty much the 1 to 5, including Stone Street from memory, the 1 to 5 were terrible in that first trial. I can't explain why. I can't explain why they weren't more up for it. I can't explain why they played so bad. But in Michael's circumstance, I can tell you that if you haven't seen him much, he's a lot better than that, and he showed that in the second game. And we all know he was super close to playing the Newcastle game last year. They believe in him. They believe he's ready. I think it was just one of those days for him.
And he's a kid. What is he, 20 or 21? So
yeah,
they're entitled to be up and down. I would have more faith in him making it than Stone Street, for instance. I think, well, just on the Stone Street thing, I know that Dan, who's often now on the show, has massive raps. But I think the pressure is now on Stone Street to come good this season. He's been given a chance. He can play at least half the year in the first grade squad. If over that half the year he doesn't impress us and another club comes along and wants to sign him a good deal, it might be time for him.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got his chance now.
Stoney's a pretty, what's the word? Not unique. It's a different sort of storyline there. And you're right. And I can't believe it's fallen this way because he gets half a year like he did last year.
Yeah.
To really prove it. And last year, to be fair, he was really good in first grade. Like he actually had a really good start to the year. Now he's got that chance again through unfortunate circumstances. But you're right. He's a year-to-year guy. I can tell you there were not many. I know other media platforms may have been hinting that, and I'm not talking about Fins Up, might have been talking about clubs knocking down his door to get to him. That's not true. To my knowledge, there was 1 to 2 other clubs who spoke to him when he was off contract last and didn't get across the line. So I think he knows it's not so much make or break because he's a young kid. I'm not going to put that pressure on him, but I think at Cronulla, the club that he loves, it could be make or break. It might be. If you don't perform to your standards this year, then there'll be other kids coming through. So I actually think he'll have a good year. Hopefully he does enough for his own sake to really get that next deal, but it's all there for him. And he was a lot better in the second trial, to be fair, as well.
Yeah. And I really hope he works because Sione's off contract as well, isn't he? So I would like to see, even though Katoa's been a good for us, I'd like to see us go forward long term with Stone Street and Ronaldo. And for the simple fact that it's bringing a younger player in as well with Stone Street, who should have now a higher ceiling than Sione has now. But it's all up to him now. He's got the opportunity. He's got 6 months at least.
Yeah. So let's talk co-captains. What are your thoughts? You happy that that's the way we're going? Did you think that's what would happen? What are your thoughts on co-captains?
Well, I didn't think they could take it off Brayley after what happened back into last year. And they probably have too much respect for Cam to say, you're not captain anymore. So it probably works. And he spends a bit of time off the field these days, Cam. He's obviously going to miss the first 2 months, maybe 8 weeks, whatever it is. So I think it's a no-brainer. That's the decision they made. It certainly brought out the best in Blake Brayley, so I think it's a good call.
And how do you feel in general about co-captains? Is it something that you're okay with? Do you hate it?
I'm okay with it. I don't hate it. I prefer one captain, but I can understand why they've gone in this direction.
Yeah.
And if it's that, they certainly couldn't have said, right, Cam is our captain, but he's going to miss the first 2 months of the year. He might not be here next year. We just don't know.
Yeah.
And Blake, you played well at the end of last year, but we're going to let you be vice captain for a while. I think it's what they had to do.
Yeah, it's the least messiest option, and also it's fair to both players who are both great players, great captains.
Absolutely.
So, let's give a shout out, Clinton, to our mate Jason Hawes, Crips and Crips Real Estate. Been in the biz for close to 25 years now. Huge Sharks fan, one-time sponsor, I believe, of the club. He's a season ticket holder. His daughter Ava is just starting out in Lisa Fior for another team, but that's a whole other story. But we wish her all the best. And he's a great real estate agent. He's the best in the business. If you want to get in touch with him, call him on 0410 417 450. Whether it's renting, buying, any kind of advice you need, Jason will give you the legit, honest answer that you want. Tell him we sent you just to sweeten the deal, but he's a great fella, and give him a call, 0410 417 450. Now, Clinton, we got a bit of mail, which is great. We love a bit of mail. I think you're going to love these. Our friend Ello has been in touch, and he said, I'm loving the Great White interviews. Happy to hear Nick Graham on the pod. I worked in the building next to him for a few years up in Brisbane, and I used to have a chat with him regularly. He's a great fella. And that is very true. Like, I got the pleasure, Clinton, to hang out with Nick Graham, my late teenage hero. And he didn't disappoint. Sweet man, great stories, still has a great love for the Sharks. So you can go watch that on sharks.com.au. It's a great chat. If you want to hear all about the Chris Anderson stuff and Preston, and he doesn't, it's not headline stuff, but he doesn't hold back either. Very informative. Talks about ET, talks about Adam Dykes, the whole John Lang stuff. So really, really great walk back in memory, down memory lane for Nick Graham. He also says Jasper, which is his great son, and he are planning to be down in Cronulla in July, hopefully for the Knights game. And he said, thanks for all the effort and content. I never miss an episode, so that's awesome to hear. Clinton, you liking the Old Boys podcast?
I haven't heard the Nick Graham episode yet. I'll be listening to it the next couple of days. I'm looking forward to it. The Dan Staines episode was just brilliant. It was
good guy.
I know we've spoken about this privately, but what's really touched me about quite a few of these episodes, including the Dan Staines one, the David Hatch, is how they just hold the club, how much respect they still have for the club, that they believe it was such an important part of the making of them as men. Also, the glowing terms they speak about Alan Fitzgibbon in. Yeah. And I think that's now reflected in the way his son conducts himself with coaching our club. It just
absolutely.
The Dan Staines one in particular, the David Hatch one also, but the club meant so much to them. They wanted to play for us. And I think there's plenty of our players in the club now who want the same thing. And to think a lot of that was because of the relationship they had with Alan Fitzgibbon, and to think that Alan Fitzgibbon has brought, obviously in bringing up his own son in Craig, they clearly share similar traits in the way they think about life and football. And
absolutely.
That's a really great sign for the future of our club.
I don't think it's spoken enough. I don't think it's spoken about enough, the father-son connection and also the history within our club. I know that Craig is super proud of his dad, super close to his dad. And he was ball boy around that time and lived in the area. And I don't think Craig sort of likes going down that road because it's such a private kind of family. But I can tell you that, like, he appreciates, like, he listens to the Great Whites podcast. He listens to it. He sent it to his mum to listen to, for example. So they understand what we're trying to do and get that respect back. On the Dan Staines thing, again, I don't want to break the walls down too much, and I'm just sort of putting it out there, but we had to stop a couple of times because he was getting so emotional, and it kind of didn't throw me, but I didn't know it was going to go down that route. Like, we had a few emails back and forth, and he was very kind of interested and really like, oh, what do you want to talk about? Like he was really in the zone. And then I met him on the day, and super sweet guy. He looks unbelievably fit. I don't know how old he is. I guess he's maybe 60 or something. I don't know, but he looks like he could go play tomorrow. And then we sat down, and within a few minutes, he was really emotional, and it was really beautiful. It made me love him even more. But your point about him loving the club, like, man, it was something else.
Yeah, you've really done a great job with the series, and you are also fortunate to be doing it. I make my living by interviewing people, but in the format that I present live radio at 3:00 in the afternoon, my interviews run 5 to 10 minutes maximum.
Yeah,
and it's very difficult in a very short space of time in a live environment to really connect in the way that you have with those interviews. And I've had experience doing long form interviews as well, but it's in that format where you can really get to know somebody and you can bring out the best in them. And that it filled me with so much pride for our club and our history that I think maybe is not recognised enough. And the other thing that really jumped out at me is that I hope the club, and I would sure they would be, because it's the one thing we've got on our side at the moment. We've got plenty on our side, but I hope they're bending over backwards to sign Fitz to another deal this year, long term, because it fills me with dread to think that Uncle Nick will be dangling the dollars at some point. Not that Fitz really comes across as a dollars guy, but we've got to remember he's a life member of the Sydney Roosters, so that club means a lot to him as well. And eventually, they'll be looking for a new coach. It's just what happens. So I just hope we get Fitz under lock and key sometime this year.
Let's talk about that. I just want to give a shout out to Ash Taylor, the club historian, who also is a big part of the Great White Series. So I don't want to get so much of the accolades. It's a joint effort thing, and that's what we do. On the Fitzy thing, in the interview I did with him, which you heard, I did just hit him with some questions, and end of the interview, he was like, "Great, thanks." His actual words were, "Not too many headlines there." And I said, "Well, I'm not after headlines. You gave me everything I needed. Thank you so much." And then we had some communication, and he said, "Oh, the contract stuff, do you think that's okay?" I went, "Yeah, it's fine." And he said, "Okay." I said, "Cool." And then within maybe 3 hours of it being up, there's grabs from the interview, thankfully being acknowledged by like getting my name out there, but like Fox and everyone's just, because it was a slow news day, everyone's like, Fitzy's in talks with the Sharks. And it's like, well, that's not
he works
quite
for
exactly.
them, so he's always sort of going to be in talks anyway.
Yeah. So I think the truth is they've had some initial talks. He said, "Hey, let's slow it down. The season's coming up. I want to focus on that." I personally believe he's not going anywhere. If the Roosters get the wooden spoon and Uncle Nick comes around with $30 million, maybe it's a maybe. I don't think it's a done deal. I think he's got unfinished work at Cronulla. I think for him to leave, it would have to go pear-shaped in lots of ways. So I wouldn't worry too much. Anything can happen. He's a life member, obviously. But the other thing is Dino and the board just worship this guy, and they should, because he's very good at what he does. So I wouldn't worry too much at this point. That the time might come, but maybe it won't. Maybe he's just having good years all the time, and we don't have to worry about it. But yeah, we're in good hands. Andrew says 26 year the Shark, and his bench would be Siffa, Hazleton, Burns, and either Toby or Uele. And then he's assuming the 19th and 20th men will be an outside back like a Hiroti, and then a half hooker like a Puru or a Beryl. Now, Clinton, I'm not sure if you saw the rundown too much, but I was wondering, do you have a bench ready for me by any chance?
Yeah, I
when everyone is fit. Everyone is fit.
I probably now leaned. I'm hoping this works out. I think he was disrupted in the last year because of injury. I like the idea of Hazelton starting initially, start the season, which means my bench would be Uele, Rudolph, Talakai. The fourth, everyone fit. I guess it's Cam. But we're a long way down the track. He's still back in the side. But if everyone's fit, probably Cam.
Everyone's fit, yeah.
And then I think you can use the 18th and 19th positions for Billy Burns and probably Hohepa. And I think we're in a really, because we've got a lot of depth, the 19-man squad now is a really good thing for us. And so the way I understand it works, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you don't whittle that 19-man squad down on game day. It's you have the flexibility as the coach to use whichever one of those 6 you like during the game, but you're only restricted to the same number of interchanges. So you can only use 17 in the game, but if your halfback's injured, you can put a utility in the side. You might not have any aims to use a utility, but if worse comes to worse, you can do it.
Yeah, so I think what happens is they've named the bench they've named right now, if you go on NRL.com, and then 24 hours before kickoff, you lose 2, but then you have those 6 guys on the bench and you play 4 of them, and you don't have to disclose who it is. Yes.
Yeah, where previously you had an 18th man, but that 18th man could only play with the HIA rules. And you had to nominate who was the 18th man.
Yes, exactly. So you can have 2 guys on there there's 6 guys, and if you do the math, maybe you can work out who it is, maybe you can't. In our case, you probably can if there's no injuries on the field during the 80 minutes. But, for example, our 6th guy could be Riley Pollard one week when we're playing the team coming last, and we're winning 30-0 with 20 to go, and he goes, Nico, you're off. Riley Pollard's coming on. So there's kind of little tricks you can do there to get guys first grade game time if they're ready. And
I think it's going to change the game dramatically, and it'll change state of origin a lot as well, because they've traditionally always had a utility on that bench. They don't need it within that 4; they can have it within the 6, and then have the flexibility. We need an impact player, or we need a replacement for a half. I think it's going to really change things. Yeah, I like it as well, and I think it actually helps us because we actually have a lot of, if fully fit, we have a lot of choice there. So a Billy Burns, he might not make the 4, but you might put him on the 6 because primarily he's a back rower, and most of our back rowers, Nickera and Wilton, can play 80 minutes. So it's almost a waste of one of those spots in the 4. But then if you've got him on the bench, and then gives you that flexibility to say, you know what, we do need to use a back rower.
We've seen his aggressiveness come out, and he's had that amazing try in Canberra, for example. He's got some other tries. Yeah. Maybe you're down by 6 and there's 15 to go, and you've got a couple of interchanges spare, and there's a guy left. Maybe you go, you know what, Billy Burns, go out there and score us a try.
Absolutely. That's what I think. I think it's really going to change how coaches manage games.
Yeah, and without only seeing 2 games now and not really noticing it much in those 2 games, but I actually like the idea of it. Hopefully it lives to be that good in a year or 2's time, but quite like it. This one's topical, Kieran. It's from Clinton. It's from Juz, and Juz says, it seems being a versatile player capable of covering multiple positions can sometimes limit consistent game time. For example, Talakai and Connor Tracy, both players who can play in several positions, yet neither were able to establish a permanent role at the Sharks. Arguably, Talakai might have cemented a starting spot as a lock or second row if he weren't such a utility player. His performances easily match that of Nickera, Wilton, and Jesse Colquhoun. Flip it over to Connor Tracy. He left the Sharks to join the Bulldogs, but in his time at the Sharks, he was often used to plug holes rather than specialize in a specific position. It's possible he could have secured a permanent position somewhere in the 1 to 17 if he was less adaptable. Has this versatility actually been a downside for their careers, both consistently filling gaps instead of locking down a single position? Incredible question.
Absolutely, it affects them, and it affects most utility players. Now, in your podcast on Monday with Kieran, you pointed towards Chad's interview with Jack Bird, which I have listened to, and it's excellent. It's really good. And Jack Bird makes the point. He believes a key reason he hasn't played consistent football for years since he left the Sharks is because every year he's had a different position since he played the Sharks. And he said that has meant that he's never really been able to focus on just that position, that he's a centre, or is he fullback, is he a lock? And so, and he's been in that position because he's versatile. There was all that, it was really interesting, there was all that talk that when he left us, he wanted to leave us, partly Broncos, but because he wanted to be a fullback, or he wanted to be this. In that interview with Chad, he said, I just want to be a centre. He's going over to Leeds to be a centre. So I mean, he was very young at the time when he left us, so maybe he did make talk about playing in one of these positions. Maybe that was also some manager talk because fullbacks attract more money or whatever. But now that he's got maturity behind him, he's 30. He believes, because he's had a fairly decent run with injury in the last few years, but he believes part of the reason he hasn't probably played that well is because he hasn't settled on a position. So utility does harm a player's career, absolutely.
Because Connor Tracy is now the number one fullback at the Bulldogs.
Yeah, but that's I guess where it works different with different clubs. Would you swap Connor Tracy? Would you prefer Connor Tracy as fullback than Will Kennedy? I wouldn't. Would you prefer him as our 5'8" than Braden? I wouldn't.
No.
We brought him to the club. He's a Cronulla junior, but he played at South before us, first grade, as a half. Now, I think our halves are better. And for all the criticism of Will Cops, I actually think Will is still a better fullback than Connor Tracy. So I think he's an example of a player who was great utility value for us, but had to move for the benefit of his own career. And he's done brilliantly at the Dogs.
Yeah. And what about on Talakai? It's definitely affected, I guess.
I think that is part of it. It might have been if I don't know if the club had intended him to play so often at centre. And because he then had that ability to play in centre or the forwards, it probably meant, we'll keep Talakai on the bench because he can cover us all those positions. Probably has been to the detriment of his Cronulla career long term. Yeah.
Because Juz says, in his opinion only, his performance easily matches that of Nico Wilton and Colquhoun. And I guess the point is, if he wasn't playing centres for so many games and years, he would have been playing lock or second row, you'd think. And therefore, maybe Wilton, for example, might not have gotten the go, etc. So it sort of works itself out in different ways, but maybe he would still be our sliding doors, but maybe he would be our second row for 10 years and maybe Teague is a Bulldog or something.
Yeah, quite possibly. But if you also compare him to those players in those positions, those players wouldn't provide the bench impact that Siffer can.
No.
That is one of his he can change games off the bench. I don't think those three players are that style of a footballer.
No, although we did see Britain have success late in the year, but I think that was due to the change of mood and that sort of thing. But yeah, great point. Thanks to Juz for that. Really appreciate it. Jay says another interesting podcast with Nick Graham. Thank you for that. And he mentions a few things about that. He does talk about the 99 season being... No, he says 2001 was the better chance to win the comp than 99. And he says leading up to the prelim against the Knights, Adam Dykes had the knee injury. They were missing Chris McKenna. So, I mean, in my mind, it was more 99, but 01 was a very good year.
I think I'd still lean towards 99. And I was only talking to some people at work about 2001 year, not the Cronulla aspect, the Parramatta aspect on the week, during the week. So I was at most of us who were following Sharks back then, I was at the prelims at the City Football Stadium. And we were leading Newcastle at halftime in that game. And I went off too early. I had this total stranger standing next to me, this old lady, and I hugged her and I said, we're off to the grand final. We're off to the grand final. We weren't off to the grand final. Now, had we knocked Newcastle out, had we made the grand final, we played Parramatta. Statistically, Parramatta that year had the best season of all time. And it was remarkable what happened in the grand final. There was a bloke called Andrew Johns and a few other of those Knights players who didn't agree with them having the best year of all time to ruin their grand final. I don't know whether we would have done that to Parramatta in the grand final. So I think it's... Maybe there was a better chance to get to the grand final in 2001 than there was in 99, which we also should have been to the grand final.
More importantly, on your halftime performance, you've told that story before. I remember that story. Now, is that the night that changed you? Because that is not who you are, my friend.
Well, I became a pessimist after that.
Well, I mean, you're obviously a lot younger, more naive. But it's not like you hadn't experienced heartbreak on the football field before.
No. The Sharks.
And that is just, if I could have the footage of that now, or if I was making a documentary and recreated that, that'd be something to film because that is amazing.
I was reasonably confident in 16 at halftime against the Cowboys. What was that, 8-0? I think we were leading 8-0.
I want to
I
say
was
14, but I could be wrong.
I was confident, but I certainly wasn't letting anyone know that I was confident.
You nuts, yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you have any memory at all of talking to her after the fact? Like, as in, like,
No,
when you were losing, when we lost?
no, I can't remember.
You hit the pub
Cannot
early.
remember that.
Okay. Jay also says on the podcast, it's good to get players' perspective and what they remember. There will always be different viewpoints as well. So thanks, Jay. Appreciate that. Dave also said he's enjoying the Great White series, which is great. He said he was heading to the shops when he was listening to the Dan Staines interview, but he had to sit in the car for a while to compose himself. Heartfelt and so genuine. So that's awesome. Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate that. Tracy has got something I'm going to mention. No, I'm going to answer that privately to you. Don't know why that's doing that. And David said, oh, this one you love, Clinton. David said, thanks for the podcast and everything else. I thought this may be of interest, and it was a link to the Sydney Guitar Show happening this weekend at the Sydney Showgrounds. I guess you're aware of that?
I've got a very big Saturday coming up. Very big Saturday.
Okay.
Because I'm going to the Sydney Guitar Show.
There you go.
Before the football.
There you go.
And I'm taking my daughter, and I guess dads who are aged around our age. Well, I've got two teenage daughters, and I'm taking my daughter, but most notably, her boyfriend.
Oh,
she's 15.
Boyfriend.
And I'm taking her boyfriend, who plays death metal guitar, but goes to church on Sundays. So
now
I'm taking.
Sometimes people use the words death metal, but they don't mean that.
No, I don't mean death metal, but it's verging on thrash. Some of it,
yeah.
It's not my style of guitar playing, so probably don't have the descriptions accurate.
And he's good.
He's good. He's a 15-year-old player who plays in the school band. I actually think he played Guy Me Pub last night with his band. Don't know how that came about. He's a good kid. Comes from, and I haven't, to be fair, they've been together for about 9 months. I haven't had a lot to do with him to this point, so I thought this might be a bit of bonding time. So
yeah.
So
and does your daughter play at all or not?
No, but my daughter likes her boyfriend, so anything he's doing, she wants to be a part of. So
interesting.
So yeah, that's the trip we're having on Saturday before the Sharks game. So Sydney has not had a guitar show. I can't remember when there was a guitar show in Sydney, and this looks like it's actually going to be pretty big at the showground. All the big brands are going to be there, and they're going to have people like Diesel getting up on stage and doing workshops, and
lots of performances. I saw.
Look, it's very dangerous for me to go to guitar anything because I'll probably come home with a guitar, which I shouldn't do.
Now, someone the other week asked about guitars and guitars I play, and we're not going to hit it right now necessarily, but just quickly, what do you got? What's your main?
Too many? Hang on. Let me stretch. Okay. This is the latest one.
Oh, is that a Mustang? What's that?
Jazzmaster.
Jazzmaster.
Fender Jazzmaster. I'm a bit of a nut with this sort of stuff. It's Mexican, but it's nitro with a very light relic. The electric guitar nuts out there will understand what I'm talking about.
Do you want to explain to people about when you say it's Mexican? I know what that means, but
it's made in Mexico. That's not offensive or anything.
No.
So Fender guitars are made in four places. They're made in the United States. I can't afford United States made guitars anymore, like most people can't. They're made in a factory 100 kilometers away from where their American factory is made over the border in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And they make some in Japan, and they make some now in Indonesia. That one's made in Mexico. But it's what people don't understand about it. This is my first guitar of this nature. It's relict, as in it has dings in it, and it has hairline scratches in it as well, and what we call lacquer checking. So that's highly desirable in the guitar world. First guitar like that I've had. It's brilliant.
Okay. Do you play much acoustic?
Not a lot. I've got a mini Martin.
But
I don't play a lot acoustic, partly because it makes too much noise. I play a lot
What?
using headphones with the electric guitar. Play a
Gotcha.
lot with headphones.
What's your second guitar aside from the what'd you say? What's Jazzmaster?
That's a Fender Jazzmaster. Depends what mood I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
I've got an Epiphone Casino, which is nice
Mm-hmm.
for a hollow body.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a Telecaster.
Ooh.
I've got a Strat that I don't play too much. I've become quite obsessed, Sam. Sorry, the collection's getting pretty big.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Just when you said the word Strat, I wanted to do this.
I actually don't play the Strat much. I hardly play the Strat.
You know what? I was taught. It was like the Dragons. I was brought up to hate the Strat without really playing one, and then my heroes played a telly, and I've been looking at telly since I was 10 years old. But then I obviously grew to a lot of people who played Strats, and I still do to this day. So it's just a bit of a joke. Okay.
The Jazzmaster has the comfort. The Jazzmaster has the comfort of the Strat, but I guess a little bit more, I don't know, street cred or something.
Absolutely. I mean, Jay Maskus Dinosaur Jr. I mean, I would imagine Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth, like a whole bunch of those guys that changed everyone's lives back in the early late 80s, early 90s. They were Jazzmaster freaks, but particularly Jay Maskus.
Yeah. No, they're good guitar. They're big guitars, but they're great.
All right, let's talk round one footy. It's finally here, Clinton. Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Ocean Protect Stadium, as it's now known. And I'm going to throw up a graphic for the people watching. People listening, we'll go through it for you. But I did this the other day. I had a bit of fun. So this is going to be our, if I can find it, this isn't much fun. Here we go. Here's the lineup. In case you didn't know, Clinton. Kennedy, Katoa, Ramian, Iro, Stone Street, Trindle, Hines. Pretty standard there. Fanua Blake, Brayley, Tall Tom gets the other job. And Nickera, Burns, Colhoun, because Teague is out for a couple of weeks. And your immediate bench is going to be Talakai, Rudolph, Kafusi, ULA. We think that's the immediate bench. But there's also Hohepa, Chris Vela, Beryl, Michael Gabriel, and Nephi Peru. So there's a little graphic for you. But what did you make of the team initially, Clinton? Many surprises or anything at all that kind of grabbed you?
I think it's pretty predictable, but in a good way. I wouldn't make any changes to that team at all. I think because you've got the injury to Wilton and obviously the long-term injuries to Ronaldo and McGuinness, I think that always had to be the way they go. I think it's a very strong team. It does show our forward depth, considering you've got Wilton and McGuinness out, that we're still able to name such a strong pack and bench that's completely dominated by the forwards. Really good-looking team. We spoke about the trial early, but Puru was someone who definitely stood out. I mean, it was pretty obvious with the break he made. But I thought overall, I think he had a really good game. And again, the 19-man squad gives us now that opportunity to really have him in that squad on a regular basis. So I think it's a great-looking team.
Yeah, the more we talk about this extended bench, the more I think it's going to work in our favour. And I guess most teams' favour, because Hohepa can legitimately change a game. And I guess you'd define him as a middle forward, but he sort of has that skill about him where he could be a half, like his brother. But it's a massive immediate bench. Talakai, Rudolph, Kafusi, and Wele. I've got the wrong name there, but that's amazing. Like that's a if they play to their capabilities, that's a very big, strong bench.
Yeah, big benches sometimes worry me because I've still got nightmares about that first Chris Anderson game against the Melbourne Storm with, was it Wessels and the other fella from the South Coast? These two big fellas that Chris Anderson brought in from the South Coast. Great the first half.
Tweddle and
Don Tweedle and Sean Wessel.
Yeah.
Well, they faded in the second half, and then Billy Slater made his debut, ripped this new one.
Now, Sean is Sean's a legitimate, talented, successful musician now. Did you know that?
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to Google that. I'm sure he is.
They both went on to play more games for us, but it was just that game, I think, is etched in the memories of most Sharks fans who were around in those days, that we're leading 20-0 at half time, and then Craig Bellamy's brand new team rips us apart in the heat. But
he actually, just to confirm, he follows us. We follow him.
Yeah.
But he is a performer. Like he plays around. He's sort of in the sort of blues country kind of vibe. Lives on the South Coast now, but does really well. Like plays around and like he's a nice guy. I've corresponded with him and just as a bit
Does he play a strat? If he's a blues guy,
I think he's just an acoustic guy. Yeah.
I'm joking about that though. We've got very experienced middle forwards there on the bench, so it's not like they're going to run at a puff in the second half. And we're playing at 5:30 in the afternoon, so might be some damp conditions. I think there's a bit of rain forecast for Saturday as well. So I think it's a great looking side.
So the Titans team is not without talent. You've got Keeney at the back, who's really good. The halves are Brimson and Lockie Illis, which we'll get to. The forward pack starring Fotuaika and Big Tino up front. Like that's where we got to get them. If you get those two guys, I think you got the game. AJ is very talented. I've been crunching the numbers. AJ is involved in a lot of what they do. Lockie Ilias is, a very kind of solid performer. I know he had some trouble at the Dragons last year. He's probably a bit better than what he appeared last year. He's had some good trial form with the Titans. I don't think he's a world beater, but he'll get him around the park. Like he's solid enough. Doesn't have me shaking my boots, but I'm not going to put any shade on him. Like he's decent. But I think overall, man to man, I quite like our chances. I will say keep an eye on Cooper Marcus By's son. He's a middle forward, I think I'm correct in saying, coming off the bench. He's a lot of power there, so we have to contain him as well. But overall, I think we're blessed that Jaden Campbell's not going to be there, for example.
Well, I think they're missing their best back in Campbell. Still not 100% convinced he's a halfback, mind you. They still seem to be carrying three fullbacks in that team. But, when we were discussing Will Kennedy, and you're talking about, this superstar potential player that you could put at fullback. Well, I think it'd be a dream to have Campbell at your fullback for Cronulla, but he's now signed a long-term deal with the Gold Coast, so that's going to happen. I'm a big rap on Campbell, and I think that's a lot of this could be because of the history, but also the style of play that we, I love that style of play because of what it did with us all those years ago. With Tino, obviously he's a superstar forward, but I think we can contain them in the forwards with our forwards.
I think so. I hope so.
I guess Hannay has some inside knowledge about how we play. That might be a factor to an extent.
Yeah, I think it will be. And I think that if you reverse it, I think Fitzgibbon kind of knows a lot about Hannay. So it kind of, it might even itself out a little bit. I'm not overly worried about that, but I can tell you that he's doing everything by the Fitz playbook. That's for sure. From the head office through to a lot of what you see in the field, it's very Fitzgibbon and Cronulla like, and why wouldn't it be? Like he worked under him for 3 or 4 years, great success here, so it makes sense to do that. And I think he's already showed in the trials like they're a different team, so it's not going to be an easy one. I know a few Sharks fans are quite not concerned, but on their toes about it. And I think the club should be too. But I do think that if we play to our best abilities, and I'm not going to say it's a must-win game in the sense of like the season's over, but I think they should really be. I'd be pretty disappointed if they didn't win this game, for example.
Yeah, we don't have the best of records in the first round, but I think this is one of our more recent winnable games in the first round. We consider we played Penrith in Vegas last year, so it's a bit better than that.
You did mention 03, the infamous Melbourne game, and if you're a younger viewer or listener, you might not want to go back to it because it's pretty traumatic, but it is the birth of Billy Slater and almost an unlosable game from the Sharks. They lose. But since 03 in round one, we've got the equal worst win percentage along with the Warriors. Go forward to 2010, we've got the most round one losses and worst win percentage. Under Fitzy, we've won the one game from 4 opening the year, and that was the Warriors away in 24, which is a really great win. Canberra, he didn't even really coach, to be fair. He had COVID, so you can maybe,
that's right.
However you want to look at these stats in history, it's not quite as bad under him. But the other thing is the Titans, they've won one of the past 7 seasons round one game. So, both teams don't really like a round one game. make of that what you will, but I would think in Fitzgibbon's mind, he knows that he wants to start fast and heavy. And I think almost in a way, finish the way you finished the year last year with that kind of attitude and defense. And I'd be surprised if he wasn't happy if we won 8-0 with an amazing defensive effort. Like, I don't think he's in round one caring too much about the points that you score. I think he's all about defense. And I'm not suggesting it won't be points in this game. I think it will be a few points, but it's going to be a good one. It's going to be interesting. It's there for the Sharks to win. I would imagine they're heavy favourites. Make of that what you will, but expecting our Shark Nation to get down there if you can, if you have other commitments, if you have birthday parties to attend, or if you can't afford it or whatever. I completely relate and empathize. But if you can get down there, encourage you to do so, because it's a lot more fun when you're at the ground, support your team. And I wouldn't mind seeing a sellout in round one, Clinton.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. I am going to be watching the game, but I have a 50th birthday party at the Royal Sutherland that I'm going to, that's been scheduled for exactly the same time to allow my old schoolmates now from 30 years ago to get together. We haven't been together for years, to watch the football together. So I'll certainly see the game. I just won't be at the ground.
Hey, you've got to leave past, my friend, the amount of games you've been to. I'm not worried about you. I'm not worried about anyone, to be fair. I miss the odd game here or there. People miss games. I'm just saying, like, round one, there's no sport on, kids sport at 5:30 p.m. I'm hoping the weather won't be too bad, etc. Get down. You want to be there. It's going to be a big year. You want to say you're at the first game, that's for sure. Clinton, that's our Sharks flagship show. Anything else you want to talk about? Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to promote you a bit more, my friend. So not everyone can sit down 3 till 6 and listen to your show. I happen to be able to do so regularly, which is great. But what I've done is I have subscribed to your podcast, which is essentially the highlights of your shows. There's one podcast today where it's the entire show, and then there's 2 or 3 other, shall we say, short episodes where it's 3 to 10 minute grabs of a story or an interview or whatever. I urge people to subscribe to that because it's a good way to keep up with you on topical events. It's not always heavy. Sometimes you have like those great interviews you do with musicians. You've had Tim Rogers. You've had, don't tell me, you've had, I'm blanking out. You had the dudes from the Angels. You've had you had David Gray. You've had a wide array of musicians on, which is great. Yeah,
look, with the program show I do, it's probably best consumed live because it's a news talk program that's called Sydney Now. It's all about Sydney and what's happening now. So it's as the title suggests, so it's very much consumed live. It's about what's happening in our city. I know people would think, 2GB's sort of a station for oldies and so forth. You'd be surprised the people who listen to our show and call in are from all ages. We've got a really big listener base in the Shire as well, which I appreciate. It's very much about the dramas of Sydney. And we talk a lot of hardcore issues, and it's been a pretty difficult 3 months for the whole of Sydney, given what the city has been through in the wake of the Bondi tragedy, and that's obviously dominated a lot of what we talk about on the station. But we do have some lighter moments. The Angels were in studio with me, I think, 2 weeks ago, and wow, John Brewster, their founder, I think he's not far off 80.
Really?
And the way he could play guitar still, just fantastic. The lead singer these days, because Doc Neeson, of course, passed away more than 10 years ago now. The lead singer, John Brewster's son, plays drums. The lead singer is one of his mates who went to school. So they used to go to Angels Kids as teenagers. He's now singing. Okay. And they did No Promises in studio for me. It was just fantastic. But I had the Mentals in last week. I had
really?
Reg Mombassa in studio, and his brother. And they were just great. The Mentals, Mental as Anything, legendary Australian band. They've got a new documentary that's out at some cinemas, came out last week. It's just, they didn't play for me. They couldn't play, but they're touring the country, and they're probably in their 70s as well. But to see these musos.
Who sings for them? Do we know?
they've just drafted in a couple of extra people.
Okay.
Name eludes me at the moment, so they didn't perform because the singer wasn't in with them. But
Yeah.
Greedy Smith died in 2019. So Greedy Smith was one of their singers who sung "Live It Up." Most of their hits were sung by Martin Plaza. Martin Plaza's been through 4 bouts of cancer. He's doing okay now. Yeah. He's doing all right now, but not fit enough to be touring the country again.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, so I think next week, I think I'm interviewing the lead singer from the Counting Crows. Mr. Jones.
You're already telling me this now.
Yeah,
dude.
I'm pretty sure that's on the schedule. I think so. I've got a team. I've got 2 producers.
I'm starting to blush. You know, I'm obsessed.
I got 2 producers who work with me, and they're in their 20s, and I'm in my 40s. And they said to me a couple of weeks ago that they get pitched up ideas from record companies. Oh, do you know this band, Counting Crows? Have you heard about it? I said, well, yeah. So it's pretty fun. We do get to interview some interesting people on the show. So look, we're pretty hardcore politics, dramas of Sydney, terrorism, wars, and all that sort of stuff. But we do some fun stuff sort of later.
Well, if you need any, if you need any intel on Adam Duritz from Counting Crows, you've come to
I
the
might
right
need
guy,
a bit.
mate. I love the guy. Oh my God, are you going to come see him play? Are you getting a freebie or something?
I actually don't. We don't. That doesn't really happen these days in the entertainment world. People think you work at a radio station, we don't get free CDs anymore. You think you get free tickets. Doesn't really work like that. I did get actually went and saw Garbage at the Opera House in December. That was fantastic. That was.
Is that when Shirley went a bit
viral? No. She did on that tour. That was, I think, in Melbourne or Brisbane. So it was a few nights after that. And she made light of the situation. They were really damn good, I've got to say. They were actually one of the best gigs I've been to. Only topped by another Opera House gig that I went to 3 weeks ago, which was the Tea Party, which I'm sure many of your listeners know the Tea Party. They were very big in the 90s. Yep. Canadian band, but Jeff Martin, the lead singer, guitarist, lives here these days. They played with an orchestra at the Opera House 3 weeks ago. Mind-blowing. But yeah, I do get to interview some interesting people on the show, and when it's someone like that, that goes up on our podcast feed as well. So that's great.
I'm still can't believe you're going to meet Adam Duritz. That's amazing. Maybe I'll come and hang out in the studio for that day. That'd be fun. Did you know Clinton on their first tour here, so they didn't tour for years. So their biggest hit was in 93 or whatever.
Yeah,
it was earlier. And they didn't tour. They had a tour scheduled. Actually, you know what you need to do is a really good documentary on one of the streamers that just came out a couple months ago, probably a month ago.
Oh, right. Yep.
And it's all about the success they had and how it affected Adam Duritz's mental health and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Completely fascinating. You should watch that. But they didn't tour here for years and years and years. And then they had some more success with those kind of one-off singles, like from the movie soundtracks and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then they sort of found the spotlight again. So they finally toured and they did I think it was 2 sold-out Enmores that ended up moving one show, like a third show to the Horden. And so it was kind of, if you were sort of in that world and you'd been waiting so long to see them, it was really chaotic. And they're an amazing live band. But the funniest part of all of it for me was I legitimately, and I had sort of longer hair back then, but I had people coming up to me thinking I was the lead singer from Counting Crows. I think I was wearing a beanie or whatever. And I'd loosely had someone say that to me over time, just a few genetics and that kind of thing. But then on the night, I had probably 45 people saying to me, "Hey, Adam, what's going on?" I'm like, what's going on here? It took me a few times. And then I was like, people think, and it's happened at different shows that I go to. They think I'm the dude from Counting Crows. Which is great because I legitimately love the guy.
I'll show him a photo of you, hey? I think it's next Thursday.
You know what we should do is we should get him a Sharkies jersey or something. That'd be kind of cool. See if I can get the club to get him on board because he really likes sport. He's into NFL. He's into NBA. Anyway, we've covered a lot of things on this. We might get a few messages saying, "Hey, just talk about the black, white, and blue," which is fine. We appreciate that too.
Well, let's talk about that a bit as well here and there.
So you think we're going to finish between 5 and 8 this year at this stage?
Yeah. No, if I was to put money on it, I'd put money between 5th and 8th position. I do think
Fair
we'll make
enough.
the finals.
Fair
I
enough.
do think we're in a position to make the 4. Don't deny that. I think if we make the 4, I think we do have the ability to go all the way to the grand final.
Ooh.
I think you want to finish in the top 2.
Yeah.
But making it is going to be a damn hard challenge this year because of the number of teams that are going to be competitive.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think what we've been through in the last couple of years of going through that phase of Sharks can't win a finals game to Sharks win a finals game to Sharks actually do really well and win 2 finals games well and then compete in a finals in a prelim. I think we competed against the Storm.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we are ready, if we get to that point, to go the next step and make a grand final. I do believe that. I just think it's going to be a really hard challenge to make the 4 itself.
I've been talking a lot about how annoyed I am now about the question of making the next step because it's an obvious one. For journos, I completely get it. I completely understand it. But there's only so many times you can be asked that. But the thing that also annoys me is that first they have to get to that, as you point out, they've got to get there to make that next step. There's no guarantee they're going to be there. Like we hope they will be. I kind of think they will be. You think they'll be close. They've got to get there. That's the first part of the problem I don't like. And the second part for me is I just don't think the step up is that big a challenge. I think if they're there, they're close enough on the day they can do it. They just haven't. It's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but I strongly believe that.
I think consistently they've shown under Fitz's time that they've taken a step of sorts each year, pretty much. And last year they did take a dramatic step in the final series. No one can accuse us now of not being able to win finals games. The Roosters were the hottest side heading into the finals. We beat them. The Raiders were the minor premiers. And they had a significant injury, get that. They were still playing at home. They were still a good side. We still beat them, and I think in the end, quite comprehensively.
Yeah.
What we've got to do, which you've made this comment on numerous podcasts over summer, somehow avoid playing Melbourne in Melbourne.
Yeah.
In the finals.
Yeah, it's not good.
And
not good.
You finish in the top 2, you can do that. Now, that's a really big challenge, but you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Can't wait to get into it. Clinton, thanks for your time. I know you're a busy dude. Really appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you at a game soon. And we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. We'll talk to you throughout the year when we can. Give this man what are we going to say? Give him I reckon go to listen to his podcast. Subscribe to his podcast. Is it just Clinton Maynard? Is that how they'll find you? They probably will.
Oh, I think it's I think you've put in Sydney Now or 2GB Clinton Maynard. That probably comes up on Spotify.
Yes, Spotify, Apple, wherever.
I listen via Spotify, but we've got the app. But if you're in the car, just switch it on live.
Yes, but I am here. I just love the fact that if I can't do that, at the end of the day, you pop up and it's like, oh, Clinton's talking about this. I'll listen to that. Oh, this one's a bit heavy. I'm not in the mood for that. I understand that. Yeah. Maybe another time. But yeah, it's a good way for people to sort of catch you every day if they can't do the 3 to 6 thing. Good luck with all that. Appreciate you, Clinton. We'll talk to you soon. Everyone else, we'll be speaking to you very shortly, and we will look forward to it. This is SharkCast Pod. We appreciate you. Up, Cronulla. Let's go. We're almost there. Let's go.